Somewhere right now, there is a child who knows all there is to know about one particular subject. It might be trains. It could be dinosaurs or flags or the full taxonomic classification of every beetle on the planet. This child can share facts for hours in thorough and tiring detail, as the adults nearby smile politely and silently question whether something is amiss. There is a person in an office who spots the single mistake in a spreadsheet that 40 other people scrolled past without noticing. There is someone in a meeting who states the blunt truth that nobody else was ready to voice, and the room turns awkward, and later someone mutters that they lack social skills. We have an entire set of terms for these people. We label them odd, intense too much, not a team player. We have constructed a world that treats their style of thinking as a glitch that needs to be smoothed away. But here is the key point. Go far enough back in time, past the offices, past the schools, past the whole modern system that decides what a normal brain should look like, and that exact same mind, the one we now mark as disordered, might have been among the most valuable members of the entire tribe. Not merely tolerated, not merely pitied, but needed. The child who memorizes every detail about animals becomes the tracker no one else can equal. The person who notices the tiny anomaly becomes the one who detects the danger first. The blunt truth teller becomes the one everyone trusts exactly because they cannot lie. So the real question is not what is wrong with the autistic brain. The real question is, what if there was never anything wrong with it at all? What if autistic traits were not a malfunction that the ancient world would have discarded, but a vital part of how human tribes actually survived and thrived? Stay with this, because by the end, the whole idea of normal is going to seem a lot smaller than it did a moment ago. Let us begin with the assumption we need to take apart, because it is everywhere. The assumption runs like this. Autism is a modern disorder. It is a product of the modern world. It may even be caused by it in some way. And it is certainly a kind of mind that would never have survived in the brutal, unforgiving past. The logic seems obvious. Surely, in a harsh ancient world, you needed to be socially sharp, physically capable, perfectly tuned to the group, and anyone who was different, who struggled socially, who became overwhelmed by the chaos, would simply have been left behind. Survival of the fittest, right? And fittest surely meant the smooth, social, adaptable generalist. Except, that is not actually how survival works, and it is definitely not how human survival worked. Because here is a truth that took our own science an embarrassingly long time to figure out. A group of people who are all exactly the same is fragile. Dangerously fragile. If everyone in your tribe has the identical brain, the same strengths, the same blind spots, the same way of seeing the world, then your whole group has the same weaknesses, and the same things will trip all of you up at once. Real resilience in any group comes from diversity, from having different kinds of minds that are good at different things, that notice different things, that fail in different ways. And this idea has a name that has been gaining serious ground among researchers. Complementary cognition. The notion that human groups did not succeed by being full of identical thinkers, but by combining radically different cognitive styles into something far more powerful than any single style alone. And once you look at a tribe through that lens, as an ecosystem of different minds each doing a different job, the autistic mind does not look like an outsider who somehow snuck in. It looks like a specialist the system was practically built to include. So let us go trait by trait, the same way we would inventory the tools in a kit, and see exactly what that specialist brought to the table. Start with the big one, the one people complain about most, the intense, narrow, all-consuming focus on a specific interest, the special interest, as it is often called. In the modern classroom, this is a problem. The child will not stop talking about their one topic and will not engage with the curriculum. In the modern office, it is a problem. They go too deep on the thing they care about and ignore the things they do not. But take that exact trait and place it into a tribe and watch what happens. Because survival in the ancient world ran on deep, specialized, expert knowledge. Which plants are food and which ones will kill you in an afternoon? The migration patterns of every animal you hunt. The behavior of the weather, the stars, the seasons. How to read a track in the dirt and know not just what animal made it, but how big it was, how fast it was moving, and how long ago it passed. This was not casual knowledge. This was a vast, intricate life-or-death body of expertise, and somebody in the group had to hold it. Now imagine the mind that is built to lock onto one subject and absorb it with relentless, obsessive, joyful intensity, accumulating detail far beyond what anyone else would bother with. That is not a flaw in a survival context. That is the perfect mind to to become the tribe's living library. The one who knows every plant, the one who understands the animals better than anyone, the one who has spent 10,000 hours of fascinated, focused attention mastering a domain that keeps everyone alive. While the social generalists were busy managing relationships and politics, which matters too, the specialist was building the deep expertise the whole group depended on. The obsessive interest we try to medicate out of children today is the exact engine that produces a master. A tribe without one like that is a tribe that knows a little about everything and a lot about nothing. And in the wild, a little knowledge gets you killed. Next, attention to detail and pattern recognition. The ability to notice the tiny thing, the small change, the detail everyone else's brain smooths over and ignores. In modern life, this can feel like a curse. You notice the flickering light, the misaligned picture frame, the thing that is slightly off, and it nags at you while everyone else is blissfully oblivious. But take that to the ancient landscape. Survival was, in large part, a game of noticing. The faint track that means prey is near. The subtle shift in the grass that means a predator is hiding. The small change in the sky that means the weather is about to turn deadly. The difference between the edible berry and the poisonous one that looks almost identical except for one tiny feature. The mind that automatically, relentlessly scans for detail and catches the anomaly nobody else sees. That mind is a survival weapon. That is the tracker who finds the trail. That is the one who notices the danger first. That is the gatherer who never once confuses the safe plant with the lethal one, because they actually see the difference the rest of the group glosses over. And it goes deeper than just spotting things. It is systematizing. The drive to understand how things work, to figure out the underlying rules, the patterns, the systems. Many autistic minds are powerfully drawn to exactly this. Not the messy unpredictability of social dynamics, but the satisfying logic of how a thing functions. Now think about tool making. Making a truly good stone tool was not simple. Napping flint into a precise, deadly, effective blade required understanding the material, the angles, the forces, the exact way the stone would fracture. A complex physical system mastered through patient, precise, repeatable technique. The mind that loves to understand systems, that delights in getting the method exactly right and repeating it perfectly, is the mind that produces the best tools and that refines the technique and that passes it down without it degrading. Some researchers have pointed out that the great leaps in human tool-making and technology required exactly this kind of focused, systematizing, detail-obsessed cognition, and have argued that the inclusion of these minds in our ancestral groups may line up with periods where human innovation and culture genuinely took off. The specialist mind may have helped build the actual technology that made us who we are. Now, here is a trait that people rarely think of as an advantage, but in the right light, it is one of the most useful: honesty. Many autistic people are strikingly, sometimes inconveniently honest, direct. Bad at and uninterested in social deception, the little white lies and manipulations and political games that neurotypical social life runs on. In the modern world, this gets read as a deficit. They do not get social cues. They are too blunt. But flip it around. In a small tribe, where everyone depends on everyone else, where your survival is tied to whether you can trust the people around you, who do you want? You want the person who cannot and will not lie to you. The person whose word is rock solid. The person who is not running an angle, is not playing politics, is not manipulating the group for their own advantage. There is a real argument that this kind of reliable, transparent honesty was deeply valuable in groups that ran on trust and cooperation. That the person who genuinely could not deceive you was, in a profound way, the person to have at your side. The trait we frame as missing the social game might have made someone the most trustworthy member of the band. And tied to that is something even more powerful: independence from social pressure. A lot of autistic cognition is less swayed by what the group thinks, less pulled along by social conformity, less likely to just go with the crowd. In the modern world, we call this being difficult, not reading the room, refusing to get with the program. But think about what groupthink actually does. When a whole group of socially tuned people all start believing the same thing, all feeding off each other's certainty, all swept up in the same wave, they can march together confidently off a cliff. Panic spread. Bad ideas become unquestionable. Everyone agrees because everyone else agrees. And in that moment, the most valuable person in the entire group is the one whose brain simply does not get swept along. The one who is looking at the actual evidence instead of the social consensus. The one who says calmly while everyone else is losing their heads, "Wait, that does not add up." The mind that is a little immune to social contagion is the mind that keeps a clear head in a crisis, that questions the assumption everyone else swallowed, that sees the thing the herd is too busy agreeing with each other to notice. Innovation and survival both sometimes depend on the one person who is not going along with it. Then there is the sensory dimension, which cuts both ways, and we have to be honest about that. Many autistic people experience the sensory world more intensely. Sounds are louder, lights are brighter, textures are overwhelming, smells are sharper. In a modern environment full of fluorescent lights and traffic noise and crowded rooms, this is often genuinely painful and exhausting, and that is real. But that same heightened sensitivity in the right setting is acute perception. The person who hears the faint sound others miss, who smells the smoke or the animal or the change in the air before anyone else, whose senses are turned up high enough to catch the early, subtle warning. In a world where noticing the predator a few seconds sooner was the difference between life and death, a finely tuned sensory system was a sentinel's gift. The same sensitivity that makes a modern shopping mall unbearable might have made someone the early warning system for the whole group out on the open land. And finally, the love of routine and consistency, the need for things to be done the same way, in the same order, reliably. Modern life, which prizes flexibility and constant change, treats this as rigidity. But consider a huge amount of ancient survival knowledge was procedural and ritual. The precise sequence for preparing a food so it is not toxic. The exact method for making the tool, building the shelter, performing the ritual that holds the group together. These things had to be preserved and transmitted accurately, generation after generation, with no writing, no books, nothing but human memory and practice. Who is going to preserve the precise method without it slowly drifting and degrading? The mind that values doing it exactly right every time, that resists casual change, that treats the correct procedure as something to be honored and kept intact. The person who needs the routine to stay the same is the person who keeps the life-saving method from getting corrupted over time. Reliability is not a small thing when the recipe done wrong is poison. So step back and look at the whole inventory. The deep specialist who masters one vital domain. The detail catcher who spots danger and opportunity first. The systematizer who builds and refines the technology. The honest one everyone can trust. The independent thinker who resists the deadly pull of groupthink. The sensory sentinel. The faithful keeper of the methods that must not be lost. That is not a list of deficits. That is a list of roles, essential, complementary, irreplaceable roles in a functioning human group. The autistic mind in this light is not a broken version of the social generalist. It is a different specialist, entirely doing jobs the generalist simply cannot do. And this is the heart of the complementary cognition idea, and it is genuinely clear once it clicks. A successful tribe was not a collection of identical people, it was an ecosystem. It needed the socially gifted networkers who held relationships together and smoothed conflict. Absolutely, those people were vital. But it also needed the specialists, the detail people, the deep focus experts, the truth tellers, the ones who saw the world differently. The social generalist and the focused specialist were not rivals where one was normal and the other was broken. They were two halves of a whole, each covering for the other's blind spots. The generalist kept the group bonded. The specialist kept the group alive with expertise no one else would bother to acquire. Take either one out and the tribe is weaker. You do not get a thriving, innovating, surviving human group out of social butterflies alone. You need the people who go deep, who notice, who question, who master. You need, in other words, exactly the kind of mind we now spend so much energy trying to fix. Now, and this is essential, so I am going to slow all the way down here because the wrong takeaway from this is genuinely harmful. None of this means autism is just a superpower and the challenges are not real. They are extremely real, and pretending otherwise does a disservice to a lot of people and their families. Autism is a spectrum, and it is a wide one. For some people, autistic traits look like the focused specialist we have been describing, navigating the world with a different but powerful kind of mind. For others, autism comes with profound challenges. Being nonverbal, needing significant daily support, struggling with things the world makes no accommodation for, facing real and painful difficulty that no amount of romantic prehistoric storytelling makes okay. I am not standing here telling you it is all secretly a gift, because for many people, and the people who love them, the struggle is daily and serious and deserves to be met with support, not a motivational poster. That is the honest truth, and it matters. And let us not paint the ancient world as some accepting paradise either, because it was not. Life was brutal and often merciless, and we should not pretend every tribe lovingly cherished everyone who was different. The point is not that the past was kind. The point is narrower, and I think more useful than that. That these traits, these ways of thinking, were not inherently useless or doomed. That there were real, concrete contexts in which they were advantages, sometimes powerful ones, and real reasons to believe that human groups which included these minds may have done better than groups that did not. The value was there. The roles were real. The contribution was genuine. So what does that leave us with? It leaves us with a reframe that is worth carrying around. Whether this is about you or your child or your friend or someone you have quietly judged as too much, the autistic mind did not suddenly appear as a modern defect. It is an ancient and recurring kind of human mind, one that very likely played real and important roles for as long as there have been people. The specialist, the noticer, the truth teller, the keeper, the one who sees what the crowd misses. What has actually changed is not the brain, it is the environment. We built a world full of open-plan offices, fluorescent lights, constant social performance, endless small talk, and a school system designed to produce flexible generalists. That happens to be brutally hostile to exactly this kind of mind, and then we called the mind disordered for struggling in a world purpose-built against it. It is the same trap, really, that we fall into again and again. We mistake bad at fitting into the specific world we happen to build for fundamentally broken. But a mind is not broken just because it does not slot neatly into a classroom or a cubicle. A deep-sea creature is not defective for being bad in a desert. The autistic mind was, by a strong argument, a thriving and contributing kind of mind for the vast majority of human history. And it only started looking like a malfunction when we constructed a society that has no obvious place for the specialist, that demands everyone be a flexible social generalist, that prizes the very traits that the autistic mind does not lead with, and punishes the very traits it does. So if you are someone who has always felt a half step out of sync with the social world, who goes deep instead of wide, who notices what others miss, who cannot lie to save your life, who needs your routines, who loves your one subject with a fire other people do not understand, here is the thing worth holding on to. You are not the failed version of a normal person. You may be a specialist born into a world that forgot it was ever built out of specialists. The tribe needed the person who saw differently. It needed the one who went deep. It needed the noticer and the truth teller and the keeper of the methods. For hundreds of thousands of years, minds like that were not the problem to be solved. They were part of the reason any of us made it at all. Did autistic traits help ancient tribes? The honest answer, looking at the traits one by one and at how human groups actually survived, is that they very likely did not just help. They may have been essential. We did not conquer this planet by being a single kind of mind, flawlessly social and identically smooth. We did it by being a wild, varied collection of different brains, each catching what the others dropped. And somewhere in that collection, doing the quiet, deep, detailed, honest, irreplaceable work, was the mind we now too often look at and call broken. It was never broken. It was the specialist. And the strangest part is that we still need it just as badly as we ever did. We have just built a world loud enough to drown out